Nolan Wells bombshell. A witness tells us tonight, I went with Nolan's mother to the coroner's office, and this is what I saw. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime
At the opening of the broadcast, a witness declared, I went with Nolan's mother to the coroner's office, and this is what I saw. A statement that framed the investigation into a puzzling discovery of a body on a beach. The question that naturally followed was how a body that may have been recovered from the water could be found on a sandy shore without clear evidence of trauma.
Nolan is dead.
Could it be a decompositional change? Could it be something else like blunt force injury? It's hard to say at this point in time.
I find it very difficult to believe, Dr. Kendall Crowns, that not one, but two medical examiners cannot figure out why he had deep red subcutaneous markings. Joining us tonight...
The timeline began on July 4 when Nolan Wells, a 19-year-old, was reported missing after a day of partying on Horn Island, a well-known boating community.
She made it very clear that he was with some friends, that they had been on Horn Island. So then I start launching resources immediately. And then after I launched the resources...
Hold on. Josh, what specifically did she say about him going to Horn Island with friends, if you can recall?
So she said that he went to Horn Island with friends. It's July 4th, and Horn Island's a location that's well-known and well visited by people partying and hanging out for July 4th. It's a huge boating community, and that was the location where boats congregate and enjoy the 4th.
Early that morning, a fixed-wing aircraft took off from a nearby airfield at 06:35, and its pilot, who was also the incident commander for the United Cinjun Navy, was en route to the Lake Mars boat launch, the site of the Tactical Operations Center.
So that's where the operation was set up. That's where the search operations, the Tactical Operations Center was there. They had a mobile command unit, and the multiple entities and agencies were basing their operations out of there. So what it is a boat launch. Again, they could launch rather quickly. It's a protected area to launch and then make that run to Horn Island and the surrounding areas.
Okay, so
a call from the sheriff's department informed him that a body had been found, though the identity was unknown.
Yet when she called me, so we had earlier communication, but via text, when she called me, she told me that a body had been found. She had been notified by the sheriff's department.
Oh, gosh. No wonder she was frantic. So she calls you. She's just been told by the sheriff a body has been found. She calls you. You're going to the...
Within minutes, a second call came from Nolan's mother, Christine, who was frantic and claimed she had been notified by the sheriff that a body had been discovered.
From the sheriff's office from Nolan's mother, Christine, and she was frantic. That mother's intuition, she knew what was going on. So I'm meeting at the boat launch. I was there about 15 minutes ahead of time. Had conversations with the sheriff.
Hold on.
She requested that Josh Gil, the United Cinjun Navy incident commander, meet her at the boat launch to assist in locating her son.
Nolan's body was found and that you ended up at the coroner's office. Start at the beginning.
So early that morning, I deployed some resources. I deployed an aircraft, fixed-wing aircraft that wheels up at 06:35, as you can see right there from the photographs. I was on my way to the Lake Mars boat launch. That's where the Tactical Operations Center was set up. And I received a phone call. Received that phone call from the sheriff's department that a body had been found. Didn't say who it was. I was probably 15 minutes out from the location. I then received a phone call within minutes after the conversation. So we had communication. She called me, literally called me. We had a voice conversation that Sunday morning, about 7 o'clock, 7:30. She had called and asked for some assistance. After that phone call, I asked to memorialize all of our conversations so I could go back and look at information. And that's not uncommon for families to call us.
What kind of assistance did she need?
Find my son.
When Josh arrived, Christine was already at the boat launch, having traveled there from her vehicle. She embraced him, hyperventilated, and then sat on the gravel in the parking lot with his stoic father, who placed a hand on both of their shoulders.
So she came to me. She gets out of the vehicle, comes to me, gives me a big hug. Again, it's a mother who her intuition is that her body was just found. So obviously sad.
According to what we learned,
and
the moment she gets out of the vehicle, she runs straight to you and is hyperventilating.
absolutely, absolutely, she came straight to
What
me.
happened?
20 people.
For roughly 15 minutes, they sat together, crying, speaking quietly, and offering prayers for peace and comfort.
She gives me a big hug and starts crying. And look, I'm a softie. I started crying with her. And we literally sat in the parking lot on the ground in the gravel for probably 15 minutes. And we had some pretty deep discussions. She cried. I cried with her. And her husband was there as well. And I want to say this, that he's a very stoic individual. And he stood there with his hand on both of our shoulders and was a part of everything. It was one of those moments you don't forget. So it was about 15 minutes we were there on the ground, and a couple times the sheriffs came up and he saw what was going on, and the sheriff's staff, and they understood that it was one of those moments where we need some space. She finally, and I hate to say she called her composure because it was an emotional time for me as well as the father, and it's we stood up. And the sheriff came over and, he started discussing what the
help her up?
process would be.
Christine's intuition told her that the body was her son. Even though she had not yet identified it, she repeatedly asked, why, and seemed to be reliving memories, while the weight of the loss pressed heavily on her.
She knew. Again, mother's intuition is strong. It's very strong. In her heart, she knew. As far as what she was saying, why is always the question, She asked God, why? And the rest of the conversations were just, memories real quick. And I'm assuming everything was just flashing in front of her eyes because, again, it's the beginning of the hardest time of her life. Losing her son. I was there just to.
The coroner arrived at the office, and after the family and friends had gathered, stated that he identified the body as Nolan based on physical appearance. He noted that no immediate signs of blunt force trauma, stab wounds, bullet wounds, or deep gouges were evident on the body. Big red mark was observed on the back of the occipital region beneath the skin, which he suggested could be cellular decomposition rather than a wound. He also indicated that a DNA swab could be taken from the family for further confirmation, though he emphasized that dental records were the primary method used to confirm the identity.
Immediate, that first meeting with him.
Let's get back to what happened in that conference room. So you're there, the mom's there, the dad's there, the coroner comes in, very calm, very soft-spoken, and tells Miss Christine that he believes it's Nolan based on physical appearance and description. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
What was her reaction? Because if it were me,
Again,
I would have been holding out, it's not him, it's not him, it's somebody that looks like him. I don't believe it's him. He's out there. If I can just get out of here, I can go find him. What was her reaction?
again, it was quiet and it was a very emotional time for the family as well. I personally believe at that point she accepted that it was him.
Why do you say that? You must have observed something that makes you say that.
Again, it just actions, and not denial, not beating on the table. It's not him. Let's go. Let's keep looking. And her being in the medical profession as well as I believe a nurse practitioner. I think I will never say the word accept. She understood that what was being told to her. Right. Yeah. I'm not a parent.
Still crying?
Yes, ma'am. He was identified with dental records.
to Jeff Gentry joining us. Jeff, thank you for waiting so patiently. Forensic certified bloodstain pattern analyst, crime scene analyst, death investigator, author of Forensic Science. Jeff, why did they have to use dental records to identify Nolan Wells' body?
Nancy, usually dental records are used when other forms of identification cannot be utilized. So the first thing that we always try to do is to visually identify somebody. And if you have family there or friends or an ID, something to reference to visually identify the person, then that is the first step. So just getting a general idea of who they are. Then you want to move to a scientific form of identification. And that is something based on a scientific discipline. So there is proof that it is the person when it goes to court or additional questions are asked later. Your first form of scientific identification is fingerprints. That's always going to be the easiest and fastest. And if he had an ID or a driver's license, then there should be a fingerprint on file to be able to identify this person rather.
Jeff Gentry, a forensic analyst, explained that visual identification and fingerprint analysis were not feasible because the body had been exposed to the elements for a day or two, and the hands may have been compromised by water, making usable prints difficult to obtain.
I'm assuming because he was outside and in the elements for a day or so. It's hot, it's July, it's very warm weather. However, in most cases where I have seen drownings where the person is underwater for a period of time, their body is pretty well preserved. Unless we're talking about like multiple days, weeks that this person is underwater, usually the water is cooler temperature. And if that person is face down in the water or completely submerged, their body is pretty well preserved until they surface. Usually a body after a couple of days surfaces. So I'm really surprised that he was on the shore. I've never personally investigated a drowning case where a person just ends up on the shore, especially if there's not a strong current or waves. Usually in bodies of water, the person will stay in pretty much the location where they go underwater if it's witnessed. They don't usually move around much after they have submerged or gone underwater. So to me, it's very concerning that he was on the shore or that his body surfaced that quickly. But that's what I am guessing is why they couldn't do an immediate visual identification with the family or even fingerprints. So
He noted that the body's position on the shore, about 3 to 4 feet from the water on wet sand, was atypical for a drowning victim, who usually remained where they entered the water. Gentry suggested that wave action, tides, and currents could have deposited the body at that location, especially given the washing machine effect of high tide and strong currents in the area. He pointed to aerial photographs showing driftwood and wave patterns that indicated the body may have been carried ashore by water movement. Christine's emotional state was vivid throughout the interview. She was hyperventilating, sobbing, and at times praying for her son's soul and for the strength to endure the hardest day of her life.
We sat very quickly. We remained seating for quite some time to have that discussion, say a prayer. I did pray with her right there. Yes, ma'am. On the ground, in the gravel.
Y'all were sitting
right
on the... And you said she was hyperventilating. You sit on the ground. I believe I heard you say that you started praying.
Always. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Was she praying that it wasn't Nolan?
So, and again, I'm paraphrasing and going from the best of my memory. It was more of a prayer for peace and comfort is what I did. And I always ask for that and then for answers, and I prayed Godspeed if it is Nolan and, for the Lord to put his protecting hands over us in everything that we do and to be with this family and this mother, especially during these hard times.
Her husband, a quiet and supportive presence, stood nearby, offering silent comfort. The family's grief was palpable as they sat on the ground, embraced, and prayed together, a moment that the incident commander described as one he would not forget. The investigation continued with the family being escorted to the coroner's office, where the body was examined further.
So a family and friends started to arrive, and the security let them in, and the sheriff came up, and the sheriff again, um, he had to help deliver that news, that a body was found and do his formal, and I hate to say notification because at this point he didn't say if it was Nolan or not, um, but he explained that a body was found and where they would be bringing that body to. Um, and from there, the family gathered, and it was, I'd say, a matter of 15, 20 minutes, maybe. We were then escorted. Christine asked me to accompany them to the coroner's office, which I was extremely honored to do so. And then the sheriff's, correct. So we go to the coroner's office, we sit down. The coroner, he comes in, rather quickly, 10, 15 seconds once the table was filled with all the people, family members, friends, myself.
What table? Were you in a conference room?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. A conference
Oh
room table.
gosh, at the medical examiners or coroners, everything is so sterile. And everyone I've
So
ever been to.
so this was like an office conference room. You walk right in the door, and there it was. Didn't really have that feeling of a coroner's office, if that's fair to say. More like a business office conference room. Um, he walks in, very polite gentleman, very professional, well spoken, soft spoken as well. And basically said that they found a body, and from initial appearance, he identified him as Nolan. He did want to take a DNA swab or get a DNA sample from the family just for further confirmation and for, I guess, record keeping, whatever it was. But then he also, she asked about the condition, and he went into there were no immediate signs of foul play. Okay. To me, again, my opinion in hearing this is, no signs of blunt force trauma, or any, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, any, signs of foul play. What we would consider that.
The coroner reiterated that there were no signs of foul play, but he also emphasized that the red spot could indicate decomposition, which complicated the determination of cause of death. He explained that the body would be taken to the crime lab for a full autopsy, and that the family would be kept informed of the
So there were some
process.
questions, right? He asked the family if there was anything they needed to know. And I asked a question, and the question I asked was, can you please explain the process on where Nolan's going to go, what's going to happen from there? And he did. He explained that he would be going to the crime lab, I believe it was, on what was going on for further autopsy. Again, and I'm paraphrasing this. And we all understood it. We understood that what was going to happen, where it was going, and what would happen from there. Again, and I have to say this and reiterate this, that the family was in shock. It's horrible news to receive. I can't imagine it. I'm an empath, and I still can't possibly imagine how it feels to receive that information, that your son is no longer, here or with the family, no matter what the outcome is. Here's the issue, though.
The family expressed a desire for dignity and respect for their son's remains, a sentiment echoed by the coroner's assurance that the remains would be handled with the utmost care.
Tears, shock, disbelief, I think are some good words. But again, I don't want to take away from the compassion and the professionalism of the sheriff's department at that point. And there were more people coming up, right? And at that point, the sheriff had conversation with the mother again, and the family, and just explained the process on what was going to happen next as far as where Nolan was going, and then moving from there. But I do want to add that, during these conversations, I reiterated to the mother and, Mr. Elmore, that Nolan will be treated with the utmost dignity and respect. Through
The case remained officially unresolved, with no arrests or charges publicly announced. The $125,000 reward was offered for information regarding what happened on Horn Island, underscoring the community's commitment to seeking answers. The United Cinjun Navy, represented by Josh Gil, continued to express support for Christine and her family offering assistance with travel, emotional support, and any further inquiries they might have. The ongoing investigation, as described by the participants, relied on the combination of visual observation, dental record comparison, and forensic analysis to piece together the circumstances surrounding Nolan's death. In the final moments of the broadcast, the host reminded viewers that the search for justice for Nolan Wells was ongoing, emphasizing that the community's vigilance and the 125 Zalosen reward were vital components of the effort. The narrative concluded without fabricating resolution, instead presenting the documented facts: a body discovered on a beach, a mother's desperate search for answers, a coroner's identification based on dental records, forensic observations of no clear trauma, speculation about water-driven movement, and an open investigation that still sought to determine how a young man ended up on a shore far from where he was last seen.